Hello, friends of Oak Hills. This is Pastor Dale coming to you for your weekly video Touchpoint. Today's Thursday, May 12th, and we are enjoying some hot summer weather already here in May. I think we skipped springtime somewhere in there. Hopefully we get some spring still before full-on summer hits us. Well, let me dive us into our Points to Ponder article for today. This is part 4 of our series called A Deep Dive into Humility. And this article is titled Satan, the Anti-Example. In our deep dive into humility, we are working with this definition. Humility is living in light of God's assessment of our nature, position, abilities, and calling. Last week, we saw this illustrated in the examples of Jesus and Paul. Neither were self-directing or self-promoting. They both looked to God for His will and direction. They both drew strength and confidence from God's grace to sustain them. They both were faithful and fruitful in their callings to serve the Lord. To further our understanding of what humility is, let's consider the anti-example of Satan. In the end, Satan does not live in light of God's assessment of his nature, position, abilities, or calling. Many Bible scholars believe we get a window into the fall of Satan through the analogous falls of earthly kings mentioned in Isaiah 14 and Ezekiel 28. The earthly kings of Babylon, from Isaiah 14, and Tyre, from Ezekiel 28, grew proud and presumptuous in their rise to power. The folly of their pride is so similar to the pride of Satan that the biblical writers use language only appropriate for Satan in describing their own fall. We read in Isaiah 14:4 that what follows is a taunt against the king of Babylon. Then the taunt focuses on his pride in verse 13. You said in your heart, I will ascend to heaven above the stars of God. I will set my throne on high. I will sit on the mount of assembly in the far reaches of the north. Now the king of Babylon made some pretty extravagant boasts. See Daniel 4:30. But the taunt of Isaiah 14 exceeds a mere human boast. The pride of the king of Babylon is analogous to the pride of Satan. We see this again in Ezekiel 28. This passage opens in verse 12 with a call to raise a lamentation over the king of Tyre. As part of this lamentation, the prophet recounts the glorious position of this king. You were the signet of perfection, full of wisdom and perfect in beauty. You were in Eden, the garden of God. Verses 12 and 13. Now the king of Tyre was not in Eden, the garden of God, but Satan was. The king of Tyre is a resemblance of Satan. The prophet laments in verse 17, your heart was proud because of your beauty. You corrupted your wisdom for the sake of your splendor. What do we learn about humility from the anti-example of Satan? Number 1, humility is closely connected with contentment. Satan was blessed with glory in his creation, and yet he desired more. He did not live in light of God's assessment of his position. He was not content. Number 2, humility is the seedbed for wisdom. Satan corrupted his wisdom by his pride. By desiring his own splendor above God's, Satan undermined true wisdom. He no longer could understand the world and how it works according to God's plans. Number 3, humility is closely connected with the fear of the Lord. Psalm 111 verse 10 says, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. If wisdom is corrupted by pride, then humility goes hand in hand with the fear of the Lord in cultivating wisdom. In fact, I will go one step further. At the core of humility is a healthy fear of the Lord. What else is living in light of God's assessment of our lives than giving proper reverence to God? And number 4, pride is the seedbed of all rebellion against God. Denying God's assessment for our lives leads to all other sins. This is how Satan led Adam and Eve into sin. He led them to question God's goodness in giving a law. Every sin we commit is a discontentment with God's goodness for us. And all sin is foolish because it rejects the wisdom of God's design and direction for our lives. We will come back to the dangers of pride, but I wanted to lay down this foundation of what humility is by looking at these examples. Jesus, in humility, looked to his Father and submitted to his lead. Satan, in pride, rejected God's lead and sought his own path. At the center of humility is a willingness to live in light of God's assessment for our lives. And to conclude our touch point for this week, I want to just touch on several highlights in the life of Oak Hills. As summer approaches, our activities get busy, our calendars are full, but I want to remind you first and foremost to be praying for Chris and Mary Granberry, our missionaries of the month, as they are making preparations for a busy summer season of hosting teams from across the country in Yakima, Washington. Secondly, I want to invite you and encourage you to come on out on Saturday, May 21st for our pancake breakfast. This is the fundraiser for our team who is going to serve with Sacred Road Ministry in Warm Springs, Oregon. Our team is traveling July 2nd through the 9th, and we are raising funds. And so plan to come and join us at the church on Saturday, May 21st, starting at 8 a.m., and we'll be serving pancakes through the morning till about 11 a.m. Joyplosion is coming in less than 3 weeks now, May 31st through June 2nd, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday evenings. And we're excited to be hosting this. And so right now is the time to register your kids. It's available right on our website, oakhillspca.com. You'll see a link right there. And it's the time to invite your neighbors and your friends from school and coworkers to come and be a part of Joyplosion. It's a great way to kick off the summer. We're going to be studying 1 Thessalonians 5:16 through 18. That's our theme verse this year. And I'm excited for our kids to just dive into the goodness of God's word, but also to be exposed and enjoy the gifts of our church. So plan to be a part of that. We are still looking for some group leaders for our kids for those 3 evenings. So if you're planning to be with us or you're available to come and be a part of those 3 evenings, let myself know, or Pastor John, or even my wife, Erin, if you could help out with Joyplosion. The men and women have separate special gatherings this month. The men are gathering tonight. So if you're watching this on Thursday, May 12th, you know that you still have time. You could come join us at Joe Call's house tonight. There's going to be good food, good fellowship, and a good time together. I'm going to be there in just a couple hours. And the women are gathering in 2 weeks on Thursday, May 26th. It's a virtual gathering for a topsy-turvy trivia night. It's just a blast and a fun time for the women to connect with one another. And I want to just mention, we've talked about it in the past, but remind it and put it in front of us again. The women are traveling to the Gospel Coalition Women's Conference in Indianapolis, June 16th through the 18th. And I know a bunch of women are already signed up and planning to travel. If you're interested in being part of that, you could still speak with Susanna Stagmeyer and explore an opportunity to join that group, the going. But the Gospel Coalition is also providing a simulcast video link to watch the sessions. And so if you are unable to travel to Indianapolis with the group of women, you could still be a part of the conference. I love conferences, and I think they're a great opportunity to build friendships and relationships with others as you share in rich teaching. And there's a camaraderie that's built around that. And so I would encourage our women to explore the options. Susanna is the contact to learn more all about that. That's what I'm going to highlight today. Thank you for joining me this week for our weekly touch point. Pray that God would bless you. I look forward to having you join us on Sunday morning. Pastor John is preaching this Sunday, May 15th, from Titus chapter 2, verses 1 through 11, or verse 10. These verses speak about the relationships we have with one another in the church. I'm excited to sit and learn from his preaching and to see God continue to build up his church at Oak Hills. God bless. We'll see you soon.